seemed as though, as we look at the power dynamics in Chicago, that black and brown alliance has not really worked for us since Harold Washington. But the young generation seems to think that there's something different. Well, I think well, let me back up. Mateo, talk to me about that black and brown alliance or lack thereof.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think that what has happened is that black people get tokenized, right, by these other groups and these other organizations that claim to be about unity and that claim to be about an alliance, but really they're not about that in the streets, right? And I think that's to where your comment is about you haven't really seen any sort of coalition in the last 30, right, years, if not more. And, you know, the point of black and brown unity, I think Mays is bringing it up, was because we saw that happen last year, right? And it wasn't politicians, it wasn't elected officials, it wasn't, you know, these self-glorified organizations that were at the forefront of black and brown unity. It wasn't, right? It was young people in these communities. The first black and brown unity action happened in Pilsen. After that, it took place in La Villita, back of the yards, Gage Park, Inglewood, all the way out to Archer Heights and to the north and west side of the city. And so, you know, it's great to see this new rise and this new effort to have black and brown unity and to build it from the ground up without anybody trying to tokenize anybody, but really actually trying to build something.
Mateo, and I'm going to push back to take a page from my man, Toussaint Warner from I Said What I Said. That black and brown unity, though, was in response to brown assaults on black people. And I do want to make sure that we don't lose that in the mix. Yeah. Let me throw the ball to Tio. Let me throw the ball to Tio now.
And just to correct you, it was Hispanic gangs after
Mays,
black people.
Mays, before you go to Tio, let me just say this. Remember who's the one who warned the black community about what the gangs were doing to them in the Latino community. We know who that was.
That was
all this coming together was only because I called out the aldermen of those areas for coordinating with gangs to go after black people in those neighborhoods. That's the only reason you had that. Nothing more.
I'm going to stop you right there, Alderman, because I want to put a pin in that because that did happen. Tio, you are on the ground in the streets, man. This black and brown alliance, and you know, you move around.
Now, look,
so what happened? How did that happen?
I want to go back to Mateo just for a second because everybody's making some good points. When I said that they don't sell drugs in the Mexican community, what I meant is that they're not selling them on the corners. I know that the Mexican brothers run the cartels. I got that. So I want to make sure I'm clear on my history. I was born and raised in Chicago. I know that I was raised by the streets of Chicago. Look here. The Latino brothers supported Tio Hardiman in our efforts also, Mateo, when it came down to calming down the racial tension 6-7 months ago. I brought them brothers together from the east and the west side of Little Village, and we all worked together. Not just me. A lot of people stepped up. So the point I'm making, I'm going to say it right here on your show exclusively. There is no black and brown coalition. There is no black and brown coalition. A lot of people are riding the backs of the black movement to make progress for themselves. I wish there was a black and brown coalition, don't get me wrong. Okay, and let's go a little deeper. And people may not want to hear this. The Mexican brothers, not all of them, some of them, are selling the dope to the black brothers and poisoning the black community. That's a black and brown coalition right there. That's really an underworld black coalition, all right? So if you want to be technical and be honest, I know what I'm talking about. There's nobody going to never, ever dispute what I'm talking about. I've lived it. I understand it. So I have a lot of Latino friends. Let me make that clear. I can call the brothers from the east and west side of Little Village, Pilsen, back of the yard, Southwest community, anytime I get ready to, and they're going to come and support me because I'm genuine with them from the street level. That's what Brother Mateo said. So, no, I'm saying on the record, there's no real black and brown coalition. Not right now, no.
Tio, and let me say that I think I've been on the record with Mays for many, many years now that there is no black-brown coalition. It's a myth. It's a myth, right. And we've seen it play out again this week, where people are trying to force something that doesn't exist. Now, I'm not saying, and I think you said it already, I'm not saying that there can't be opportunities for black and brown to come together around issues, right? And it has happened, both good and bad. But the idea that we're people of color, and I hate that term, it means nothing to me, that has to stop. Because it does one a disservice, and it's very disrespectful to somehow suggest that the Hispanic immigrant experience in America is equal to the black experience in America. it's apples and oranges, and we should be more respectful of that. And I think the young activists have a lot to learn about our history.
Alderman Lopez, you got on my radar. I'm gonna be honest. Alderman Lopez and I had some challenges until Alderman Lopez called. He called what was happening in the neighborhoods, particularly in his neighborhoods, when the black folks were getting assaulted. Black folks were getting assaulted. Yeah, help me understand this intersection. What happened, Alderman, with these community-based organizations and the mayor's organizations working together? Tell me a little bit about that.
So, last year we saw where the deputy mayor of public safety, Susan Lee, coordinated with the police department, coordinating with a number of those street outreach groups, quote unquote, to work in coordination with street organizations, formerly known as gangs, to try and keep communities safe in the midst of all that was happening. And what we've been seeing is a steady drumbeat of dollars going to some of these not-for-profit organizations who are now being used as partners, but who are, as I said, when funding was given to them at the last city council meeting, they are not holding these former street organization members to a higher standard. They are allowing them to both be outreach and continue criminal activity. And we cannot continue to go down that path. And I just want to correct something about the CARES money. It's a matter of priorities. And I 100% agree with everybody who's brought up how much money went to where. And the mayor.
Careful. If you see me. You die protecting your community. Protecting your people. These fucking savages. They're gonna come in, you're gonna let them come in your neighborhood. Rip up our businesses. Rip up our, look at them, they were shooting at them. Why? Because they wanted in. That's why. This is what it comes down to. This is what it comes down to. You don't let these freaking animals do what they want in your freaking neighborhoods. All right? Kick them out of our neighborhoods. Not today, yesterday. I'm tired of this shit.
Other races.
Yeah, well, the first thing that's so important is for us to talk about racism within our community and how we fit both, how we are both impacted by racism in the United States and across the world, but also how it exists within our own communities. And, a lot of times I'll hear people say, okay, this is about Black Lives Matter. What about Latinos? And I always say, Latinos are Black. we are Afro-Latina, and we run an entire racial spectrum. And so we have to have conversations around colorism, and we have to have conversations about the African and indigenous roots from which we come and how that's reflected in systems of power, wealth inequality, and frankly, our political system.
The Black and Brown Coalition. Let's talk about it. This video could be long, but we're going to keep it short, though. You ever notice how your favorite pundit, political commentator goes on TV, politician, you ask a direct question about black people, and they respond with black and brown and kumbaya and everybody else, people of color, which is used to diminish our issues and to avoid specificity. It happens oftentimes, and you hear this Black and Brown Coalition. It's like clockwork. It's almost like we're trained over there on that Democrat plantation. We're trained to repeat that instantly. When you go listen to Latino activists or whatever who are from their community, they don't have that same thing. You'll get the ones that hang out with black people to do it, but by and large, those who don't, they don't talk like that. They're self-interested, which they should be. But I'm gonna play some clips later on. It was a segment that Maze Jackson has had about what's going on in Chicago. The 13-year-old kid that was shot was the premise of their whole conversation, but they were asking the question because Maze has been consistent in saying that there hasn't been a real black or brown coalition since, specifically in Chicago, since Harold Washington, maybe 30 years ago. But what had happened was, and you'll see this in this conversation they had, but basically when the pandemic hit in Chicago, black folks let their white liberal friends come into their communities and neighborhoods and destroy some shit. And you had your Black Girl Magic, Lori Lightfoot, the gay mayor of Chicago, who a lot of people were like, her and Cuomo were good leaders and doing a great job with the pandemic. No, they weren't. Neither one of them were. But I looked up and down my timeline, people, Black Girl Magic and her celebrating him, her, and Cuomo. I said the same thing, right? Him, her. But we found out that Lori Lightfoot let her police stand down. They all went downtown to protect the white side of town, or the business side of town. And the aldermans and her all conspired to let the Latino gangs police the situation. Not the police. The police were all being utilized to protect the white people shit in downtown areas. And the Latino gangs, the OGs, the retired Pookies and Ray Rays, the reformed Pookies and Ray Rays, they were out there kicking ass and taking names of black folks. Now, again, I have no problem with them saying, no, Pookie and Ray Ray, you're not about to come over here and burn down our business and coalitions and whatnot. Our dollar don't leave our community in 2 seconds. You're not about to come do that. That's fair game. I understand that totally. I wish black folks would have did that to their white liberal friends and said, nope, you can't burn down our CVS, our Walmart, our whatever, because, you know, grandma can't get her diabetes medicine. Keisha can't get formula for the 5 kids. Yep. You know? We didn't do that, though. We participated and let them burn down our shit. It's not yours because you don't own it, but it's yours because you utilize it. And once the bridges went up in Chicago, you couldn't get downtown because they blocked that off. And then your stuff was all burning and falling apart. And you tried to go over to the Latino side of town, and they were like, nah. Again, I have no problem with them protecting their stuff from the Pookies and Ray Rays, but the problem was, it wasn't just Pookies and Ray Rays that was getting ass with. Regular black men and women who wanted to go get food and necessities couldn't do it either. They were also being attacked and kicked out and shunned by these Latino gangs from going over there to shop and get the basic needs. And that was done under the leadership of Y'all Mayor Lori Lightfoot. But that's just an example of that they were self-interested. It wasn't no black and brown coalition in that situation. Because a Latino alderman who's on this clip I'm going to show you called it out and pointed out what Mayor Lori Lightfoot was doing and what other the aldermen of those Latino districts were also doing, he put them on blast. He took a lot of flack for that too on his own community. But I say all that to say this is that I don't know why black people have these delusions of grandeur. They have this idea that all the poor people are going to work together, all the work class is going to come together, kumbaya, and destroy white supremacy. Nope. Most people are going to side with power, and most people are going to be self-interested. And I say all that to say, it's okay for black people to be too. You remember that meeting that they had where Joe Biden was sitting there and he was talking to all the so-called black leaders. He was telling them, when he was asking about questions about black folks, he told them to stop worrying about that and go figure out a way to go work with the Latinos. He's telling the black so-called leaders like, yo, you know, the Latinos is getting up there in numbers. Add that to the fact that he said that the Latinos are unique and diverse. And when he actually has to campaign, he has to go to different parts of the country and he has to say different things to different groups because he's not going to get them all. He's not going to get 90-something% of Latino women. He's not going to get the 85% like he do of black men. He got to actually campaign and go meet their needs and dress their needs specifically. That's after he said that. So after he said that about black folks, y'all niggas is just dumb, y'all not leaving the plantation no matter what. My translation of what Joe Biden said. He then goes and said to these Latinos, man, they different. I got to go to Arizona, man. They support different things in Miami. You got all them Cubans over there. They not messing with all the socialism and nonsense that AOC be talking about and the squad. Like I gotta do work when I deal with them, but with the Negroes, y'all just get in line. And then he mirrored that again when he told those so-called leaders in that meeting, yo, you need to go start making coalitions with those brown people. Again, I have no problem with the fact that they're self-interested. My point is, why can't black people be too? And I'm more speaking to the black political class because they're the ones who be diversity this, equity that, people of color this, people of color that, and they never, and that just waters down everything, and black people get nothing. They become the bottom of the barrel. And as Dr. Claude Anderson pointed out, at one point there's only like 5,000 of them here, and they surpassed us within 50 years. And yet, you go on any Breakfast Club interview where they're talking about running for an election, and if there's a politician of color, a black one, they're going to bring up the black and brown coalition. They're going to mention brown people. Even when you ask a specific direct question to black people, they're not going to just talk about black people. Kamala Harris said in her Byron Allen, whatever he owns, interview, they asked, would you do something specifically to help black people? She said no. We know that other presidents have done things specifically for groups. Hell, Obama did that for Native Americans. He did it for LGBT. Granted, can't knock them because they're self-interested. This is not to knock the other groups for being self-interested or for getting things that they want politically or being addressed with specifics. It's kind of admiring that they get to do that. We don't. But part of the problem is why we don't is because we allow our shit to get watered down. We love being mascots for other groups, and we let other people come in and co-opt our stuff, and we don't get nothing. You see all the smoke that Tamika Mallory's getting and BLM's getting for the money they got, and there's trained socialists and this and that. All this money happening, none of the victims of these kids that have been killed, the parents ain't getting none of that bread. They're not seeing no change in the community. No laws are being dealt with or addressed, and there's everybody making money off of black death, specifically black male death. But yeah, there's no black and brown coalition. And again, that's not to beef, but it's to think about how many times, even to this day, after Joe Biden said what he said twice, after you seen what happened in Chicago with some of these gangs doing what they did to black folks, after you seen the one Dominican dude in New York who was in his video ranting and raving and crying and spitting out of his mouth talking about get them N-words, we busy up here trying to convince Puerto Ricans and Dominicans that they black, and they not even trying to hear none of that. Unless it's cool and it's a trend to do that. But then when it comes down to getting resources and opportunities, they run back into the corner. Now, I'll give you this one thing, right? I remember this one chick, right? Darker skinned Puerto Rican, a little bit lighter than Amara La Negra. We out and we kicking it, and I'm saying stuff, spitting game, whatever, talking. And before I even said anything, she goes, I'm not black. And I'm like, yo, chill. I'm not one of these black folks that be trying to mix people black and make Puerto Ricans and Dominicans black. I get it. Yeah, I got your own cultural things. Y'all don't. It's not y'all. I'm not that person. But then I'm like, let's dive deeper though. I'm like, you said you ain't black though, but you over here from Puerto Rico, which is still America, kinda, because they're having that internal debate amongst themselves. But yeah, they are, but not fully. If they want to vote, they got to come here. They can't do it from there. But she goes, I'm not black, but I'm like, well, what do you fill out when you fill out applications? When you filling out things that black people fall for? She checks black. She's like, well, I'm not white, so I got to pick black. So you don't want to identify as black, but when you filling out paperwork and trying to get some grants and some tuition for school, whatever, you check that black box. Interesting. I just left it at that. But yeah, that's just my video. There's no black and brown coalition. Black people have to be self-interested. Stop with the whether it's the Pan-African people telling black people that they're being divisive because they want to focus on black issues in America. Whether it's the biracial people talking about they being divisive because they want to say, no, we're talking about black people right now. You got to leave the room a little bit or be quiet a little bit. That's okay. You've had the one comedian chick that be on You're the Young Turds. She be out there trying to explain away and call out the racism and issues within the Latino community. That's the funny thing too. That's the only time you really hear about them speaking out is when they're one that has like a relationship with a black person, they got mixed children or whatever, and they're trying to say like, yo, we got some stuff, we got some issues here. That's really all you really hear though, is when one of them who has assimilated more to black culture, like you see Jen Garcia, she's been invading the Negro YouTube spaces. She was on with Cynthia G and Nyla, and then she did a little something with Obsidian. But if you follow her work, you saw the beef between her and Tariq Nasheed. But she's often in black business, in black spaces, in black conversations. But at the same time, she's also jealous of the movements and the things that black people have done. But that's just my video though. I'm done. No Black and Brown Coalition. Check out this commentary. It was interesting. A whole bunch of Latinos just admitted, nah, we piggyback off y'all movements. We utilize it to benefit ourselves. There's no real coalition. We're being self-interested. We don't. If one thing that bothered me bad about Killer Mike, and April Phillips said the same thing. Amber Phillips, my bad, and Roland Martin. They said some of the similar things. Roland asked, or someone asked her, like, yo, if black people did get some stuff from the Republicans and from Trump, would you rock with him and work with him and get, you know, more stuff and vote and give him some votes and give him a return on your investment, that ROI? And she said, no, if other groups aren't getting what they need. But you'll never hear no illegal immigrants tell black people, you know what, we'll forego amnesty, we'll forego DACA, we'll forego getting stimulus checks even though we're not citizens for black people to get reparations. You'll never hear that. Killer Mike said the same thing on The View. He said black people would not sacrifice their rights for a gay or one. Nigga, speak for yourself. It's okay, black people, to be self-interested. You don't have to always put other groups ahead of yourself. Yes, it's cool and you do need allies. That helps. But it should never come at the cost of your own groups. And I forgot which congressperson said it, one politician said it, that they love black women voters because black women voters will vote even if they're not getting shit from it. They'll vote for other groups' interests over their own. So that 90-something% that Roland always brags about that the Democrats get from black women and y'all want to be praised and paraded around for doing, that's not a good look. You don't get any return on your investment. What do you have to show for that 90-something+% of voting for the last 50 years for the Democratic Party? I'll wait. You support school choice, the Democrats you support don't. You claim that the black community is violent and you're not protected, but who supports laws that will not let you get weapons and carry to protect yourself and your community in the major cities that you choose to live in? All right. I said this could be long. I'm going to stop now.
Evolve to. Now, I'm going to suggest that that is not representative of everybody, but we have seen in the news, we have seen people who would normally be considered enemies of the state. We are watching as white folks weaponize Latinos, Latino gang members against us. On the live line, and let me tell you, I have Roberto Sepulveda straight up. You know, I tell you, we got there's no Black and Brown Coalition, but if there was one, he's an active member. He has always been supportive, but, you know, he reached out to me last night, and I'm being straight up because it's my man. And he was like, man, we got to stop this. We got to stop it. It's like, and I was like, that wasn't us. You know, I tell you about when there's a fight, don't hold me. Don't come tell me. Get your man. So I want to see our Latino allies at the forefront of standing up and defending this coalition, so-called, while we put our plan together. Now on the live line, Berto Aguayo is on the live line. He said, listening to the morning show, he felt compelled to call, and I know I've met you on some occasions, Berto. So welcome to the morning show. Talk to me about what the Latino community is doing to prevent these outbreaks.
Yeah, thank you, my brother, for inviting me on the show and for really talking about this important issue. And first, I want to acknowledge a couple of things. If you hear my voice kind of raspy, it's because I've been screaming the past couple of days trying to break up fights everywhere. So I apologize for that. But then I also want to acknowledge, first and foremost, before I say anything, is that, you know, as a Latino, as a Mexican-American in the south side of Chicago, I'm doing my part to challenge my community members on that anti-blackness that should not exist in our community. And
does it though, Berto? Does it exist? Because I think that we got to start at that point. Like, I think we talk about Black and Brown Coalition as if there's a natural allegiance, but I've never seen it. Is there?
I agree.
Okay.
Look, I think we got to talk truth, right, so we can heal, right? And we got to say things for what they are. There's a lot of anti-Black sentiment in the Latino community. There's a lot of anti-Latino sentiment in the Black community. And we start at that, and then we move forward and heal together. And I think we have a responsibility as leaders to call that out on either side when we see it, and call it for what it is. And just to let you all know, like, I know you were showing the clip of the Latin Kings on 26th Street. We were on 47th Street, so I can't talk about 26th Street. We were on 47th Street on Sunday protecting small businesses, and we knew we were keeping the peace and making sure people didn't get out of hand. We were holding brown people were holding Black Lives Matter signs on 47th Street to make sure we kept the peace and called for unity. But then Saturday, the day before, we organized Brown People for Black Lives to head downtown to Federal Plaza, starting from Little Village at Discount Mall. And I don't know if you can show the clip, but we packed Discount Mall parking lot. There were more than 500 cars with Mexican flags and signs that said Black Lives Matter. Because there are, just like there are people who, like you saw in that clip, that are not representative of the whole community. There's also people like myself and countless other organizers and activists who are down for the cause and know that our liberations are intertwined. And we know that there's anti-Blackness that exists, and we create these events to make sure that we promote.
I have the clip. You want it?
People for Black Lives.
Unity. Okay.
Yeah, and so that's what we did. And I've been working on trying to build Black and relationships based on honest truth and dialogue for a long time now. And I think that's just what we need. We need to say, hey, anti-Black sentiment in the Latino community is real. Let's do something about it. Anti-Latino sentiment in the Black community is real. Let's do something about it. But we have to make sure that, we start at that point, because if we just try to act like it's all, unicorns and rainbows, and we're not going to get anywhere. So we start at truth. You know what I mean?
Hey, you know what? You hold on with that. First of all, let me tell you, I appreciate this call. Actually, I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to play your clip. We're going to talk about it, but you know what I appreciate? What I appreciate is the honest dialogue. For so many times on this show, even as every one of our elected officials, Black elected officials, goes to the mic, they always say Black and Brown Coalition, and it's not because I'm trying to be a hater. It is really an assumed alliance that we have not really truly built. We still go back to Harold Washington, but like on a day-to-day basis, there are real issues. And you know what? I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you and Roberto, regardless how this works out, I appreciate you being at the forefront. And, I talk smack because I said be about it, and then y'all send me the damn video messing up my damn show. So look,